town has a ghost story that's been passed down through the generations. But what if those legends were true? My name is Miranda Young, and I'm the Ghost Biker.
Good evening, everyone, and happy Thursday. You're watching Shop Talk Live from the Ghost Biker Garage, and I'm your host, the Ghost Biker. Here we are trucking through the middle of December here, and it's hard to believe already almost mid-December. Seems like we were just wrapping up Thanksgiving, wrapping up the Ghost Biker season, but here we are. We had a great show last week. Had a pre-recorded interview with Mr. David Childers. Got a lot of feedback on that. I know a lot of you have come on and was talking about how much you enjoyed that. So we'll definitely have to try to have him back on at another date. Got a full lineup leading up here to the end of the year and super excited about tonight's guest. We will definitely get to that here in a few minutes. Want to say hello to a couple people over here in the chat room. We've got Mr. Joe Shortridge up here. Thank you so much for making our show a Thursday night tradition. Always happy to hear that. Hello, Lisa. Hello, David Anderson. Merry Christmas to you as well. Hi, Susan. And hello to Dell Quigley. And hello to all of you that are over there and not being so vocal in the chat room. So if anyone has any questions for tonight's guest, I'd just like to ask that when you put them over there in the comments, that you put them in all caps so that I don't miss you. Sometimes whenever we get to having these great conversations with these guests and conversations are going over in the chat room, it's easy to miss someone. So I want to make sure that I don't miss you guys over there whenever we're talking in the middle of our conversation. So hello, Jim Cody. It has been a beautiful day, a beautiful rainy day down here in Southeast Tennessee. I know it's been that way up in Knoxville area. And hello to Brandon Cooper. So I want to get to a couple things before we get into tonight's guest. Again, we're trucking right along with the historic Scott County Jail and with our Ghosts of the Past at Christmas haunted history walk and flashlight tour. We've got those every weekend that's leading up to Christmas time. We take you on a 45-minute walk through the town of Huntsville, sharing the haunting history that made Huntsville and Scott County the way it is today. And then also we take you through those Christmas lights, sharing those stories. And then we end it with a flashlight tour. Usually it's an hour-long flashlight tour of the jail where we show you video as well as play audio evidence of things we've captured in there, as well as some of the many paranormal teams that have come and spent the night in the jail. So we still have tickets to those left. I think we have 4 or 5 tickets left to this Saturday's haunted history walk. And then we also have a few tickets left on Sunday, and then we'll end up having one more weekend of that before we close those tours down before the Christmas season. We also have flashlight tours every Friday night. Those are a little bit shorter. Those are 90 minutes in length, and those are just a tour of the jail. And those are happening every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time at the historic Scott County Jail. So go check out the website, www.historicscottcojail.com. We also highlighted, I do not have one of those here in front of me because I'm currently packing up to move from my house. So I don't have one of those here in front of me, but we do have, we were recently just highlighted in Haunted magazine that comes out of the UK. They did a 4-page spread on the jail. It was wonderfully written article by Penny Griffiths Morgan and highlighted in Paul Stevenson and A.E. Sowers' Haunted magazine. So we're really proud of that. We've got a very limited couple of copies there at the jail for sale. We're not selling those online. We are selling those in the jailhouse gift shop. But we are very, very excited and very, very proud of that. Penny did an amazing job writing that article. And then just a couple more things I want to share before we get to tonight's guest. I wanted to take just a few minutes and share. It's been a week full of announcements. I just announced this week that I've actually been added to the speakers schedule for the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, which this is going to be my first year attending, and I know that it's 3 days, and the funds go to the Wounded Warrior program, and of course, it's in Gettysburg. So I can't think of a better location for a Paracon, but lots of amazing and very intelligent speakers, researchers are there. They're going to be speaking during those 3 days. And I believe based on the schedule here that I'm going to be speaking at 4:30 on Friday in the Eisenhower room. So definitely go on there. Check out on my page. We will have more information on that as far as getting the tickets. I think it's $20 a day, but you want to get your room and all that stuff early, because I know that sort of thing does sell out pretty quick. And then also I don't know if that has the website on it, but if you go and if you just Google Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, you'll definitely find that information. The Gettysburg Ghost Exchange has information on that and everything as well. Also wanted to quickly share another thing that we talked about today. This picture here. Very, very excited about this. Back in October, we partnered with the London Laurel Tourism Commission as well as Wildcat Harley Davidson in London, Kentucky. And yesterday, I actually ended up presenting the check. We ended up donating the registration fees from that weekend, the Hogs and Haunts Ghost Biker Explorations weekend there in London, Kentucky. We ended up donating the registration funds. We did $255, and those funds went to the Shop with a Cop program. So definitely thankful. I see a couple of you folks that I met there at that ride. We did a motorcycle ride, we did a ghost hunt, and we also did a a cave tour on that Sunday, as well as a meet and greet on that Friday night. So it was a weekend chock full of a lot of fun. And like I said, there was several folks here. I know Susan Purcell, she attended the ghost hunt, and we're hoping next year to actually be able to go in and double, if not triple, those funds that we donate to the Shop with a Cop program. It is extremely important, especially to families here in rural Kentucky, rural East Tennessee. It helps these disadvantaged families provide Christmas gifts for their kids. So, so super excited to be able to be a part of that, and hoping next year. We had to change the date this past year because of the hurricane that went through, and that kind of messed with the attendance a little bit. So we didn't have as high of attendance as we would have liked due to having to change that date at the last minute. But hopefully next year we'll be able to, like I said, double and triple that. So we are working on getting a really cool weekend planned coming up real soon. And thank you, Joe. Thank you for sharing. That is the GettysburgBattlefieldBash.com. Doesn't get any more easier than that. So, all right. So I want to go ahead, get to tonight's guest, because I know that there's going to be a lot of questions and stuff for her. We were talking a little bit before the show and kind of talking how the interview, the direction we wanted to go. And we're just going to just freeform it and see where the conversation takes us. So I kind of want to do just a very, very brief introduction of tonight's guest, just, to kind of warm it up. But she's going to go ahead, and once I bring her on, she'll be able to talk in a little more detail. But super excited because she is the owner of Squatch GQ Magazine LLC and produces Squatch GQ Magazine, Cryptozoology Digest, Into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal Magazine, Dinosauria and Prehistoric Creatures Magazine, Hound and Prospector Magazine, and she's written a number of books on lake monsters and odd creatures in the Great Lakes, Beyond the Mothman, Flying Creatures of the Midwest. And not only does she do speaking and writing, but she's also available to do presentations and does a really cool library tour. So I know some of you folks have seen her speak at some of these other conventions. So I'm going to go ahead, pull her on, and let her kind of go into what she does, because I know she can give a lot more detail than I can. So, hey,
Hi.
Shetan.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me on the show tonight. And thank you to everybody who's tuning in. Joe, I saw you. Dale, I saw you too. So I am so thrilled to be here. And let's talk cryptids, ghosts, things that go bump in the night. Let's have at it. So I have watched your shows. Um, I've always been impressed, being
Thank you.
also a female investigator, of how you go into locations and you do your investigations. And I've always been just, thought that was really, really cool. And Joe's actually the one who was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of the Ghost Biker?" And I'm like, I just saw you posting about her on your Facebook page, and now I've watched a couple of episodes, so I'm thrilled to be on your show today.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's, I know that, I've Joe, and Joe is just wonderful. And so he was actually one who kind of introduced me to you as well through, I know he's attended some of the different events that
Yes.
you've done up there. And so he was talking about that. So thank you, Joe, for this wonderful introduction. So, and I think Michael John says it best. He says Shatan is a living book of knowledge.
Thank you. I love that. Oh my gosh. To me, that is the greatest compliment to receive, because certainly I spend a good majority of my time researching and then writing about, what I've researched, going out into the field and researching. And so I'm thankful that other people, acknowledge the hard work that I put in to get you guys information and to be informed myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, why don't you kind of go ahead and sort of talk about how you got started doing what you do? Was it the paranormal that interested you first, or more of the cryptozoology, cryptid side
It
of
was
things?
it was kind of a tie-in with both. So when I first started becoming interested in both the paranormal and cryptozoology, it was when I was between 9 and 10 years old. And back then, not to give away my age, but I am in my 40s. Everything was in that category was considered new age.
Hmm.
And so the books that would be produced on it would have literally one chapter about Bigfoot, one about, Atlantis, one about the Bermuda Triangle, one about UFOs. But then you also had Fate magazine, which would have articles on everything that had to do, like, metaphysical powers of gemstones and, being chased by, the Yeti and did, UFOs come in contact. So as a young child, preteen, I'm reading this information and you'd wait for the next new book to come out. Well, now there's so many books out on it that you could spend a lifetime reading it and still have another, 1,000 books to read. Um, and the fields of research have just opened up. So now we do have cryptozoology as a field. We have the paranormal as a field. We have ufology as a field. We have high strangeness as a field. And then we've got all these different little pockets of information um, that filter in and settle upon the little cracks that we see in between, or as I call them, the missing puzzle pieces
Mm-hmm.
to the great big puzzle that we're all trying to form in our pursuit of knowledge on these topics. And so for me, it started when I was a young child. And for cryptozoology, it started because when I was a child, we would go here in Michigan, the vacation was always go camping. And so each year or each summer, it was a different campground that we would go camping to at. And this one particular summer, my parents had chosen this campground called Crystal Lake here in Michigan because the lake was crystal clear. You could see all the way into the bottom of it, which is fantastic from one standpoint. But this next standpoint, they also had, and I'm going to call him an alligator. He could have been a crocodile, but they had an alligator, a 6-foot long alligator living in a kennel paneled pen next to the camp store. And they would tell the kids that, yeah, we caught him out in the lake and we just brought him in as a pet. Okay, so that meant I wasn't going swimming that summer. I wasn't going fishing that summer. I wasn't going out on the dock or the pier or the boat or anything else because the water was crystal clear. And I'm like, I don't want to see the alligator coming.
Right.
It's going to kill me. It's going to eat me. So at the same campground, they decided that for family movie night, they would show the Patterson Gimlin film and The Legend of Boggy Creek.
Wow.
Now, as adults, we, obviously the Patterson Gimlin film is the best evidence that's ever been caught on tape of Bigfoot. But as a 9-year-old child, I'm like, oh, okay, so 2 guys went out into the woods on horseback and they filmed this creature. And that's what I'm watching on screen. But then you watch the Legend of Boggy Creek, and as that 9-year-old child, you're like, so if the other movie was real because the people filmed it and this thing's reaching in people's windows, we're in a camper. It's like,
Wow.
how safe is that? I'm like, that Bigfoot's got to be out in the woods here. So I spent like the next 45 minutes in like the women's bathroom, and 2 older ladies walked me back to our truck camper. And then it was like, I didn't want to go swimming. I didn't want to go out of the trailer. I didn't want to be camping for the rest of that summer because it was like, well, there's alligators in the lakes and there's Bigfoot in the woods. How much fun can we actually have? And then right around that same time, I had my grandmother on my father's side. She had passed, and it started some paranormal activity for me because she actually came and visited me while I was sleeping and told me that she had passed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And when we all got up that next morning and my parents, said, hey, we got to talk to you guys because we have to immediately go down to Indiana. And I said, yeah, Grandma passed. And they said, how did you know that? And I said, well, she came and told me when I was sleeping. And since then, I have had different situations where I might not see the apparition, but I hear them.
Okay.
And it's always very clear as day. And it's like, could you let me turn on a voice recorder first? But it's always in places that I don't anticipate that there's going to be any paranormal activity. Like one that still floors me to this day. I don't know if you've ever been to Mackinac City.
No, I have not,
Okay.
but my parents have. Yeah.
Okay. So in Mackinac City, there is a huge public restroom at the end of the strip, and it's right before you get to the ferries for Mackinac Island. Mackinac
Okay.
City and Mackinac Island are 2 separate locations. So I had stopped there in the June of that year, and I was taking my mom and her German Shepherd back up to her summer home in Ely, Minnesota. And I had my little dog with me, Tegan. And I had used the big stall and I had Tegan with me. And then we had left, we got on the road, there was no issues. So fast forward a couple of months and I'm returning back from Mackinac or from Sault Ste. Marie from going to my Paracon. And I stop at the bathrooms there in Mackinac City. I go into that same exact stall. And as I'm about to leave the stall, as my hand is on the latch to open it up and go out into the rest of the bathroom, a voice clear as day says, "What? No puppy this time?"
Wow. Wow.
It was so loud and audible that I responded back to it. No, she's at home. And then I'm looking around like, um, there's no security cameras. There was nobody else inside the bathroom. All the other stalls were empty. There was nobody outside the bathroom. But the interesting part is something remembered that in June of that year, I had my dog with me. Fast forward to late August, and I don't have my dog with me. And apparently, that was an issue for whatever entity had observed this. And they really wanted to know where my little dog was. And it was like, well, she would bite you anyway. So, just, as a matter of fact, here she comes on the screen right now. Hi, Tegan. We are talking about you. Yeah, we are.
She knows right when you're
Oh,
talking about her.
yes. Joe knows this dog. Joe has met Tegan. Tegan's the little firecracker. Tigan's the sweet one. Tegan's the mom.
Oh,
Tigan's the daughter. So, yes, here we're talking about you. Yeah. But
so
she's little. She's 7 pounds. But it was like something wanted to know where this little dog was and why I didn't have her with me. And it's still, it's like the weirdest things that the paranormal will interact with you over.
exactly. I mean, when I had something follow me home, and I only had it on one occasion, it was messing with my dog. And I had at the time, I had a little small dachshund, 15 pounds. She was 17 years old when she passed. And they really wanted to interact and mess with the dog. And of course, that's when I really put my foot down that it's like, you can't mess, with her or anyone that's kids and animals I don't
Right.
want to messing with, but it does seem like certain spirits animals are drawn to. And then the cat that we have at the jail, they seem like they really like her, and at times it seems like she's interacting with somebody that's not there.
And it's very possible that she could be. You know, we here at my house, which it's a family home. My parents have one section. I have another section. My younger brother has another section. But we've had different paranormal activity through the house. And when we used to use the downstairs basement as a living room area, a TV room area, we would have every once in a while, all the dogs would suddenly perk up. And like my mastiffs would go chasing something through the basement. And they would go
Wow.
round, the rooms would actually, you could make like a circular pattern with the rooms, but the dogs would interact with something and then they would lay down and be like, hey, whatever. And it's, now working with the paranormal, I'm a huge fan of the color teal or haint blue, which is a
Mm-hmm.
greenish blue or a blackish blue with some black mixed into it. And my bedroom is actually painted 4 different colors of paint blue. All of my
Nice.
clothing is teal or aqua or turquoise in color. My dog's collars, leashes are teal, aqua, or turquoise. I've really embraced, even my hair is the haint blue because I don't want anything coming home and bothering me. And so I really embraced that color as nope, you're not allowed to attach to me if I have this color or if all of my surroundings are this color. You are not going to affect me or cause any problems in my life. So just go back where you came from because you're not going to like it here.
Well, I love that. I love that you mentioned that because there's times on the show where we'll talk about superstitions and traditions and that sort of thing, and that's one of my favorite things because that's one of the things that got me into the paranormal.
Yep.
And as I'm moving, I'm actually painting my doors there at the old farmhouse paint blue, and out of tradition. But kind of tying into that, with what you do with cryptids and such, um, you know, it seems like in different areas of the country there are, these regions have specific cryptids related to these specific regions within the country and traditions and that sort of thing. Can you talk a little bit about some of the different cryptids that are related to not only your region, but several other regions of the country?
Sure. So I term those as small town monsters, and or hometown monsters. And really, it's refreshing to me to see when a town actually embraces that cryptid history. So, but it can also be a letdown too, because, for instance, in Rylander, Wisconsin, there is the hodag. Now we know now that the hodag was a hoaxed creature that a person in the town, created and would exhibit at county fairs. And it was this taxidermied creature that his son would get inside of and make it move and everything like that. But the whole town, like, they have statues painted, at every different business. And they have a huge, like, at the Chamber of Commerce, there is one that is honestly as big as a dump truck standing outside of, and they celebrate this creature. They sell merchandise, of this creature. They wholeheartedly embrace it. But then you go to Lake Champlain, and you've got Port Henry, New York, and then you've got Burlington, Vermont, which are supposed to both be champ hotspots, and there's barely anything. Like Lake Champlain, Port Henry, they do the Champ Festival every year. But the local businesses, other than they have some signage that has Champ painted on it, and a welcome sign with his sightings, painted on it, they really haven't wholeheartedly embraced it. And the most information I found over in Burlington, Vermont, was the Echo Center had a small exhibit on him in their aquarium museum exhibit. And then the local, I believe it's the local softball or baseball team, Champ is their mascot. So they have a cement Champ outside the business. And then there is, in one of the local parks, there's a marker that talks about the first people who witnessed Champ and their experiences with him. So it kind of ranges in between places that fully embrace their cryptid creature or their folklore, and places that are like, yeah, okay, whatever. Here in Detroit, we have the third Sunday of every March, we have the March to Nain Rouge, which is where our little, trickster spirit, the Nain Rouge, we do a march through the town, and eventually, we catch up with him at, the parade end location, which is usually the Masonic Temple there in Detroit. And they'll have a speech from somebody from the mayor's office and the chief of police, and then they'll grab the Nain Rouge and ceremoniously throw him in a old car, drive him down to Toledo, and leave him there. Gotcha, Joe.
Go ahead.
It really does. It depends on, the different areas, and if the animal or creature or folklore is actually attributed to a town, and whether that town chooses to use that as a form of tourism. And, I can tell you have a business that is within the tourist, industry. I do travel writing on, different paranormal locations. And so I think it's something that towns and cities around the world really need to focus on and embrace, because if you have the legends, if you have the haunted locations, then why not? If you have people who are going to come looking for that and want to research it more, want to get, foot on the ground there, then why not give them something to come looking for or more to experience when they're there?
Yeah.
You look at places like Lyle Blackburn with the Legend of Boggy Creek. There's a whole festival. There's a whole, little tourist niche right there with the Legend of Boggy Creek, and it's only because they've embraced that story, that cryptid creature, and they keep it lit. They keep that going,
Mm-hmm.
and they know that people are interested in this information. And if people weren't interested, in this information, then why are the paranormal shows and the cryptid shows the number one shows on cable television? Why are the events like the conventions, the
Mm-hmm.
paracons, why are
Paranormal
those
tourism.
booked? Why are ghost walks so popular?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Exactly. And we have that. So we have something like that here in Cleveland, Tennessee, that it was really started kind of by one person, but it's steeped in legend. We've got Tall Betsy here.
Okay.
And Tall Betsy she's really based on the woman in black and the gentleman that created essentially the story of Tall Betsy or the character of Tall Betsy. They were able to turn her into Cleveland's national spook. And
Oh, okay.
so, yeah, and so people have Tall Betsy sightings. They've got, all kinds of things, especially around Christmas, or excuse me, around Halloween time, of Tall Betsy decorations, Tall Betsy cutouts. Tall Betsy
Hmm.
makes an appearance at the block party that's here at Halloween, and it's really interesting because she was a real person back in the late 1890s who was, they don't know if she was extremely tall or if she was possibly like a police officer who would dress up to try to get the kids to come in before dark.
Oh,
But
okay.
they had actually had several different sightings of Tall Betsy between like 1894 and 1899.
Hmm.
She was in a certain area of town, so she may have actually stayed in, because if she was truly 7 foot back at that time, that was something that was very uncommon, for
Right.
a
Yes.
female especially. So anyway, she disappeared at that point in time. There were no more sightings of her, and so they were able to go back, and do some genealogy on this this other lady's tomb known as Flora Shields. That's where she was rumored to be buried, and
Okay.
see if they could tie in Flora Shields' life to this woman in black, because nobody knew who truly she was. So this town has essentially really embraced Tall Betsy, and you see the Flatwoods monster, you
Oh,
see
yes.
you see
I've
the
actually, I've actually,
Mothman.
I've actually been. Now imagine this: my big F-250 truck with the camper on the back of it, and I'm trying to find the Flatwood Monsters like little museum, and it
Yeah.
routes me into up a private road into this guy's driveway. And the guy comes out and he's like, "Can I help you?" I'm like, "I'm looking for the Flatwood Monster." He's like, "Ha, ha, 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 ha." He's like, "Go back down into town, either go left or right. Left, will take you into town where the museum is. Right will take you down to where the restaurant is." And he's like, "Are you going to need help turning around in my driveway to go back down?" I'm like, "I will do it a quarter turn at a time." So went back down, and I've got my aunt and my cousin with me, and they're like, "Oh my God." And we've got like all four of our min pins with us. And I'm like, "Nope, nope, we will handle this." I'm like, "I can take this truck through the eye of a needle." Um, you know, I'm not even worried about it. So we went back down, and I just happened to park outside of the museum and walk up to the door, and the gentleman who owns it and runs it was taking merchandise in, and I explained who I was, and he's like, "Oh yeah, come on in." And at that time I was working on my Mothman book, which is being relaunched with a new name and new cover. It's now going to be called Flying Cryptid, or Flying Creatures of the Midwest Beyond Mothman. And so I was able to go into the museum and take pictures of the different figurines of the Flatwood Monster and stuff like that. And then we did the little tour around the town of the diner and stuff like that. So I've actually been there, and I know exactly the location you're talking about. So it's it's they do embrace it, but you have to realize that the town itself is very small. And so what they do have is actually, if you consider how big the town is, it's actually, you know, they're doing it quite well, because
Hmm.
it's not like they have a metropolis there. It's one of those very small towns.
It is, and that to me, when I was passing through, because I was passing through on my way to the Belair House in Ohio on an investigation, and we always try to look for these different roadside or
Yep,
different attractions on the
I
way,
did
and
the same thing. Oh my gosh.
yeah, you start to see, like, the billboards for the Flatwoods Monster, and they actually had, like, a trail there that you
Yes,
could drive and had the cutouts where you could get
yep,
your picture with the I really thought that was really clever because, eh, just from, what I experienced, there wasn't really much else in the town
right.
really, except for that. So it
Yeah,
really is quite brilliant. I mean, at gas stations, they had the little Flatwoods Monsters
yep,
everywhere. It was very cool. Um, and it's really neat whenever you see these places that do embrace that. I know that, this is one of the like I said, this is one of the topics that we've not really talked about as much on the show just because it is so vast and everything. And again, there's so much that we can cover on this. So I definitely want to make sure that I have you back to talk about some
oh
more
yeah, I'm
specifics.
always looking forward to coming back on shows, because it's like you can never cover it all in an hour.
Absolutely.
You get a brief pinpoint of,
So
of it. But yeah.
so what is probably what is your favorite type of cryptid to do research on?
So I will forever and always love my lake monsters, and I am always interested in learning more about them. And the reason for it is we can prove that Bigfoot exists
Hmm.
because we have the evidence. We know that people have had sightings of Dogman and Mothman, but the factor with the lake monsters is they're like the Schrodinger's cats of the cryptid world. We will never be able to prove if they're there, if they're not there, because at no point in our history will the Great Lakes ever be drained. Will Lake Champlain ever be drained? Will the oceans ever be drained? And as long as these big bodies of water exist, and these bodies of water are vast, you cannot scan them all at the exact same moment. So they're open bodies of water where anything can move, and you could spend the rest of your lifetime just going over Lake Erie, which is by dimension the smallest of the Great Lakes, and you would probably still not know all the stuff that's sitting on the bottom of Lake Erie. And to further that point, there is a ship, she sank in modern times, called the Bessemer Marquette #2. This was an all-metal ship the size of a football field. She sank in Lake Erie. She's still missing to this day.
Wow.
So if a stationary object like a ship, especially a ship of that size, has sank in that lake and we still can't find it, you tell me why we can't find the lake monsters. Um, you know, so
Hmm.
I will always be interested in lake monsters, and to me, I have 6 different categories for lake monsters: giant fish, giant turtle, sea serpent, which is exactly that terminology. It looks like a giant snake or something swimming through the water. Prehistoric marine reptiles, amalgamations, which are generally more Native American legends. The great underwater panther Inabishu falls into that category. And then the 6th category is the scalenoids, or the merman type creatures that are reported in different bodies of water. Not necessarily Aquaman, Jason Momoa, but
Darn it.
uh, if that was swimming out there, I think we'd have a lot more women out on boats going, you know.
Yes, so and you hit on a really interesting point to me because my field of study tends to be more on the paranormal, but I'm fascinated on cryptids as well as UFOs. And you hit a really good point when you said that they're harder to, I mean, you can understand where they would hide. For me in the beginning, it was a little more difficult when it came to like Bigfoot and some of the other monsters and cryptids and such, that it's like, okay, how come we can't find, other evidence? But I mean, there is evidence out there,
Mhm.
but for me, it's kind of like once I get out and I start seeing just how vast some of the woods and stuff
Yeah,
is, it's like, okay, I can understand that. But to me, the bodies of water, just, I mean, we don't know what's at the bottom, and we're constantly discovering new,
exactly. Yes.
yeah, yeah, new life
Yeah.
forms all the time in the water.
Both living and prehistoric, and sometimes living animals that we thought died out in the prehistoric age, but we're like, this should not be existing, but there's a breeding population there. And as
Wow.
long as human beings stay away from them, they will continue to breed and produce. Sharks are one of the oldest species. Sharks, alligators, and birds are some of the oldest species that we have on the planet. And yet look at the impact that we've had on several of these species. There's multiple bird species, shark species, and crocodilian species that have gone extinct during the time of man because of man. And these are creatures that were here when the dinosaurs walked the earth. And you know we know that we're just starting to find out now that Greenland sharks, those big ones, can be
Mhm.
over 400 years old.
Wow. Wow.
That's knowledge that we didn't know 10 years ago, but now we're starting to study them. Now people are getting a whole eye opening of these really large Arctic species of sharks or whales or what. They're old for and big for a reason, and that's they've been here for a long time.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
to me, those are as good of a lake monster as anything because you don't expect a 400-year-old shark to be swimming around.
Very true. Very true. So what are some of the, I know you gave some of the classifications. What are some of the sightings that people have seen there in the Great Lakes?
So in the Great Lakes, we have the legend of the giant sturgeon, who is said to be mostly in Lake Superior. And whenever he gets annoyed with all the boats crossing Lake Superior, he will use his tail to whip up the waves and cause these huge storms. And so, in between him and Inabishu, the great underwater panther, they really do, stir up Lake Superior. But also living in Lake Superior, you have the great Manitou Nibinibus, the god of the lakes, who is said to be half human, half fish. And if you encounter him, if you're close to land, get on land and stay there.
Wow.
Because once he realizes that you've seen him, he's going to send storms. And his hope is to drown you while you're on the lake.
Wow.
But other stories that we have the amalgamations. So I always say that, the great underwater panther, Inabishu, even though he is of Native American legend, he is also an amalgamation. But so is Onair, so is Gassendia, Carcagna. These are all legendary lake monsters that we have in the Great Lakes areas that are said to be dragon-like, but they have like horns, like a moose, or they have sails going down their backs, or they have seaweed manes. They're covered in algae, and their whole purpose is to cause human beings issues and problems out on the lakes, and to take back what they think humans are taking from them, which is fish, copper, tobacco, iron ore. And that is the whole premise of these lake monsters of Native American legend, is they are a controlling factor of human greed.
Mm.
So if you take too much, then they have the right to sink your ship.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like the sea serpents, as I said, we've got there's a report out of the 1960s in the Straits of Mackinac where people were seeing these huge sea serpents swimming through the water, so much that they were calling it into the police, and the police were finally like, okay, we've had it. We're coming out to investigate. And they actually did witness these sea serpents frolicking in the water and swimming around. And one of the sheriff's deputies actually got into a boat and went out to investigate. But he was never able to get more than 50 feet from them, and they dive under the water and swim off and pop up somewhere else. And he was never able to see the head of the animals or the tails of the animals, just the middle of the animals. So he was not able to give a definite answer of what they were other than a sea serpent. And what lake monster story would uh not have a plesiosaur or something like that in it, that classic Loch Ness monster that everybody hopes to see in their lake. Whether it's a pond in the backyard or a open stretch of ocean, everybody has that dream of someday they're going to see a lake monster in that lake.
Well, I know from, from growing up, one of the scariest pictures that I can remember is seeing the picture of the boat on the water with the very, very deep water with all the all the water monsters underneath.
Yeah.
That all of the different sailors and explorers and everything would talk about. And I just always thought, it's what you can't see
Yeah.
that's just terrifying, because there's life under there.
Yep.
And some of the stories, some of the legends and such, to me, that's always been fascinating and creepy at the same time.
And it is because we get glimpses of what is in the underwater realms, and we get glimpses through video footage that somebody with has sent an ROV down, or you have a technical diver who can dive down that deep. But it's such a eerie underwater world of, even when you're investigating a shipwreck or watching footage of a shipwreck, you're realizing that you can't if you encounter anything other than the shipwreck itself, there's nowhere to hide. And eventually you're going to run out of air and you have to make that surface.
Yeah.
And it's not a fast process.
Right.
Because you have to, the old divers, the statement is that you rise to the surface as slow as your slowest bubble, because you have to adjust to those different depths. Right. And if you race straight to the top, you're going to get the bends. You're going to have to be in a chamber, and you're going to have to deal with air bubbles in your blood. All of that sounds horrible,
Right. Well, I mean, talk about being an alien. I mean, you are truly an alien when you're down there in that in the depths, exploring that. I mean, to me there's no truer definition in the sense. Do you think, and that kind of leads me to my next question, do you think, because people will talk about UFOs and that sort of thing, and being not just from outer space, but coming from the depths.
Oh, yes.
Do you think that is more possible or plausible?
I truly believe if they have the technology to build a ship that can travel through the atmosphere. They are more advanced than we are. Then they definitely have technology to have ships that can go underneath the water, and they can probably set up whole cities down underneath there. And when you look at things that we have here on Earth that we shouldn't have, different elements, different minerals that are, yes, they could have come here off of a meteorite, but we find them in an abundance in certain areas. Scientifically speaking, octopuses should not exist on Earth. They have such a weird DNA and blood chemistry. They are like nothing else on Earth. Cephalopods in general are highly intelligent. They can communicate through light and color. They can live at any depth. They can mimic the appearance of other animals. They are smart enough that when we bring them into a human environment like an aquarium, if they decide that they like the fish that's in the tank across the way, they will find a way to get out of their tank, go get that fish, eat that fish, go back to their own tank and be like, I don't know what happened to the fish. I can help you look for it. You know, who's to say that octopus weren't like I don't want to say parasite, but a invasive species that was attached to one of these alien spacecraft, and when they went underneath the water, the octopus then decided, oh, this is just what we want to live in, and then prospered here on Earth.
I mean, that could make perfect sense. I mean, because they are extremely smart.
Yes, and we do know, I mean, there is evidence of them in the fossil record, but what's to say that the original groups that we had evolving here on Earth didn't get exposed to something more advanced in chemistry or biologics, and that is what we now call our cephalopods, our octopus and squid today.
That's a great theory.
It is, and it's something to consider, because there's not, it's like that. It's you can't tell me it's not possible,
right?
But you can tell me that it is possible.
Well, and I like kind of how you termed it as an invasive species, because because they do have those suction cups and all of that on their body, kind of like, you see on the boats whenever they've got all the barnacles and all of that on. I mean, why not?
Right.
Huh.
So, we know about 75% of what lives on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a whole lot of unexplored things on Earth. So we can't exactly say what else is living out there on other planets, because we still don't know what is living here on Earth.
Very true. Well, and again, even the depths of the ocean. I don't know the percentage. You probably know a number. They know very little, right? About certain areas of the ocean we've never been to, right?
When you consider that a large percentage of the Earth is covered in water, and up until 20 years ago, scientists believed that life forms could not exist in extreme conditions, in extreme cold, in extreme heat. But now we know on the ocean floors that they are these tubular worms that live just fine next to volcanic vents. They actually prosper there. But we also know that some of the biggest living species on this planet do just fine in Arctic waters. Whales. They do fine in Arctic waters. So you can never, you can go to the most extreme deserts, mountains, rainforests, and you will always find some type of living life form. It could just be a small bacteria, or it could be something, like a pygmy elephant. People just, there's still a whole lot of learning to do out there in the world.
Yeah.
And I am never willing to say, nope, that couldn't be possible, or that, that could never exist, because we don't know. We dismiss the folk tales and legends of old as, oh, that creature never existed. And then we find something in the fossil record and we're like, pump the brakes there, we might have gotten this one wrong. And, to this day, paleontologists, they do discover the new dinosaur species, but every couple of years, somebody makes a new discovery and it changes the whole outlook on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And how these, different species interacted, where they lived, how they ate, how they used, different parts of their bodies. So, there's never anything that is solid fact unless you have it there in front of you. But even then, give it enough time and your knowledge of it will change depending on how you interact with it.
That's a very good point. So do you believe that Bigfoot, Sasquatch, that they are flesh and blood beings rather than interdimensional beings?
So with Bigfoot, I do think that the large percentage of sightings and interactions that people have are from a flesh and blood creature that originated here on Earth, because we certainly have evidence of it in the fossil records with the way that the primate family tree has evolved.
Okay.
And we as human beings are part of that primate family tree, as are chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, macaques, the little gibbons monkeys, and Bigfoots. We are all part of the same family tree. We've just chosen to go in different directions. But honestly, I've seen some human beings who behave worse than any primate that I've ever seen in the zoo. So, but no, I believe that for the most part, the Bigfoots are a natural occurring species here on Earth that have been here since the fossil record. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not an alien race out there in the universe that look more like a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. It also means that there's not a Dogman type creature civilization out there. Now, Dogman and Mothman, I do believe that they are more interdimensional or alien in their nature and their origin.
Okay.
Just because they seem to come and go at their own discretion, and they can come here, go away, come back. But humans, we don't have a grasp on that. If we come into a portal, like that, we're gone. That there's so many people who go missing every year in areas where we have these cryptid sightings, but we also have UFO activity, where we have interdimensional portals that we think exist. And I think it's just a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Now, are those interdimensional portals, are they pretty stationary, or is that something that can move? Like because I've heard of several different locations that are known to have these portals.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that's just kind of common to that area, or is that something that can actually move and shift for whatever reason?
I think I don't think that they are like open 24/7. They're not
Right.
like a McDonald's.
Right.
I think there's different situations, different seasons of the year, maybe different times of the day that these portals open. And where they are and when they open, I have no idea. But we do know that there's enough theories about quantum physics and how interdimensional travel could work that it is, possible that other species, other intelligent beings have figured this out, and they're coming here to observe what us humans are doing. See, are they getting more intelligent? Are we going to have to worry about them showing up in space and actually being a threat? Or, what are they doing to their world? Because we don't want them coming here and doing that to ours. So, there's so many different possibilities with what is potentially taking place at any given time on this planet or in the universe itself. It's really, overwhelming to think of what else could, be out there.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are out there and they are coming to Earth, how did they gain that technology? How did they develop that? And is it ever going to be exposed to human beings and give us that level up so that we are suddenly doing space travel?
So you think all of it is potentially related?
I do. Well, if you look at the cycles of life and the world and the universe, everything's related. It might not seem like it's related, but there's always a cause and effect, and there's always a reason why something happens. And it's like when a leaf hits the surface water of a lake or a pond, and it causes that ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what your actions or what anybody else's actions or thoughts or deeds, what that creates and possibly sets forth into action. So there's always the potential of something that we do today affecting tomorrow and having, manifesting from there. So to me, anything is possible.
I like that. And that's, I'm always interested to hear, because I know when it comes to the paranormal, cryptids, ufology, that sort of thing, even, the missing, national parks, missing, can't think of my words this evening.
The
Yes.
411 report.
Yes. And so, I mean, everything, when you really kind of deep down start to look at it, a lot of the things seem to tie together. And several locations that I've investigated, have talked about that they have tons of cryptid sightings as well as paranormal and UFO sightings.
Yep.
All within these little areas. And it's interesting that they do kind of seem to happen in these little clusters or in these specific areas. It's getting just vast amounts of activity coming from all sides.
And one of the interesting things is when you have areas that have all three of those, paranormal, UFO, cryptids, see what the ley lines in that area are.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's been a proven fact that civilizations have followed ley lines without even realizing it since the beginning of human history. But also, these ley lines seem to be magnets for activity, paranormal activity, cryptozoology sightings, UFO sightings, people going missing. And these ley lines I'm not an expert on ley lines, but I know enough to know that there is a reason why things occur on these ley lines. And ley lines are energy lines that are within the earth that really do have an effect on everything around them.
And that's what I was going to ask, if you could explain that, just in case there's anyone in the chat room, because I know D Hoot just asked about ley lines, and I was just going to ask if you could expand on that just a little bit.
Yeah, so ley lines are energy lines that are They are in the earth. And if you look at how humans from ancient cultures prospered and developed out across the earth, you will see that their path in all their major cities, all of their major accomplishments have happened on these ley lines. And it's something to do with the energy that they give off. And this, we do think that the ley lines also are what animal species base their migratory routes on. And what fish follow to go back to their original breeding grounds. So you're looking at something that's very powerful, and just as powerful as the effect that the moon has on human behavior, on the waves and the tide. If you don't believe me, ask any ER nurse, EMT, firefighter, police officer, first responder of any kind, what day of the month is their busiest? Actually,
Full
what
moon.
night of the month is their busiest? They will tell you the full moon every single time.
Nurses and nursing homes, absolutely.
Yep.
It has a huge effect. Yeah.
Yep. So, if something that, far away, because the moon is not, you can't just walk out your door and, touch the moon. Something that far away has an effect on not only a natural occurring, effect in the world of the tides and the waves and stuff like that, but also affects human behavior. That's very powerful. So we have these ley lines that are in the Earth's surface that people are drawn to, but everything else is drawn to also.
Yeah, and D Hoot says, she says where they cross, especially. Thank you for breaking that down, Shetan. I know that's something that you know, like the where the lines meet, where the lines run. If you look at some of these locations, you get extreme activity at
Yep,
these places.
you do.
Yeah,
You do.
And Dale says, "Thank you, Dale." And Shetan really is a Google of the crypto world.
Thank you,
I love
Gail.
that.
Thank you.
I love that because I feel like I've been throwing a lot of stuff all over at you, but like I said, just the way the conversation flows when you start talking about this, because again, it is something that that is so vast. What area has some of the most cryptid and bizarre activity sightings? Would it be the United States, or are there other countries that have more?
It's really hard to specify what area has the most activity, because on a day-to-day basis that can change, and you're just as likely to see something from your doorstep in Tennessee as I am here in Michigan, or Joe in Toledo. It just depends on if you are there when the activity happens. So people are always like, oh, there's no Bigfoot reports in my area. Well, that doesn't mean that there's not Bigfoot in your area. It just means that nobody has witnessed them, or if they have witnessed them, they haven't made a report. So to give people kind of a guideline of where Bigfoot or Dogman or any bipeded cryptid, any meat-eating cryptid might exist. If you have any areas that have farms, cornfields, livestock, fruit orchards, vegetable gardens, anywhere you have populations of deer, then you also have the potential of having a Bigfoot, Dogman, or any meat-eating carnivore or omnivore cryptid in that area, because the deer eat the corn, the fruit, and the vegetables, and everything else eats the deer, and also the fruits and vegetables. So wherever you have farms or apple orchards or any of those, food producing sites that, we take for, for granted, those are the areas where you can have the possibility of having any of these cryptid creatures.
Now, do people, if they have any sightings, do they report any of this to you, or do you work with other agencies?
So they can report to me. In this day, there's so many different cryptozoologists out there and well-known ones. I mean, it seems like Ken Gerhardt's on TV every other week. So he gets a lot. Lyle gets a lot. Chad Lewis gets a lot. Podcast hosts get a lot. So it really depends on who people are willing and feel comfortable with talking to, and what they think making the report will get them. So some people, they want answers. Mm-hmm. They want to know what they saw. They want to know if it's something to be worried about. They want to know how to keep it from coming back to their farm. Mm-hmm. And so they will seek out somebody like me, a cryptozoologist, and ask, okay, what did I encounter? And I don't ever want to see it again. How do I keep it away from my farm? But if they want to get their names known, then, they are looking to talk to podcasters, TV people, authors, writers. So it really depends on how they want their information used. Gotcha. Now, with the magazines, if somebody sends me their eyewitness account and they want to be interviewed, I'll interview them for the magazine and put their, it in the magazines. Mm-hmm. And, because I do think that there is a knowledge base to be gained from different eyewitness accounts. And when you start forming a pool of reports, and people can start as a collective reading that and reviewing it and saying, okay, I've seen this before in a different location. Mm-hmm. Of the Bigfoot acting this way, or the creature looking, similar to this, or its hair color being this color, or it having these distinct details. That is a good information pocket to have and to be able to share with the collective of cryptozoologists, around the world, so that other people who are investigating this stuff can compare it to what they have encountered or what they have reports of.
I like that, and really be able to compare. And let's actually, while you mentioned that, I'm going to pull up on your page here. Let's talk about your magazines that you have, your publications. And I'm not sure if this shows all of them, because you're a very busy person.
Books. Yep, that's the two books. And there is Squatch GQ.
Okay.
And into the Liminal abyss.
I think, let's see, unless I'm missing somewhere. I know you had a couple others, right?
Yep, there's Squatch GQ Magazine. There's Cryptozoology Digest. There is Into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal Magazine. There is Dinosauria and Prehistoric Creatures. And then the new one, the baby, that's coming out in a couple of weeks, is Rock, Hound, and Prospector Magazine.
Oh, wow. Wow. And so where can folks check out these magazines? Is it something
I post, everything is available on Amazon, and I usually post things of when everything's available. Everybody's like dying to get the Rock, Hound, and Prospector magazine. And I'm like, I'm still writing it, guys. Just pump the brakes, I did a test cover to send to the gentleman, Eric, who found the Uperlights and named them, and he published it on his page, and now everybody wants the magazine and are throwing temper tantrums because it's not available yet. It's like, guys, I'm still writing it. Just wait a second. I produce 5 magazines every quarter, so just give a girl a break. But those are my 5 magazines that I currently produce now. There's more in the works. I have a friend that I'm helping develop a horse magazine, and then there will be probably a dog magazine that will be produced within the next year or so. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't like sleeping. It's boring.
I was going to say, like I said, very, very busy. Now, are these subscription based? Can people get a
No,
subscription to 'em?
one of the issues that I took over ownership of the company from the original owner,
Okay.
and one of the issues he had was being able to fulfill the subscription
Gotcha.
orders. Not because we didn't have the magazines, but just because it became an overwhelming task of keeping track who ordered which magazine and sending it. So now everything's available on Amazon,
Okay.
both my books and my magazines that I produce. And I am very diligent about posting the links for the magazines, the whole quarter that they're new for. And so people just will either have to just check my page or each one of the magazines. So Squatch GQ, Cryptozoology Digest, and Into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal magazine all have one piece Facebook page.
Okay.
Dinosauria and Prehistoric Creatures has its own Facebook page and website, and Hound and Prospector magazine has its own Facebook page. And as soon as I get a moment, we'll have its own website also.
Okay. Okay. Now,
And and for people who enjoy this type of content, if you are interested in writing an article about any of those topics, cryptozoology, the paranormal, ufology, weird travels, paranormal locations, if you're into rocks and gemstones, if you're into dinosaurs or prehistoric creatures or any of ice age creatures, if you want to write an article, feel free to send it to me. I am very easy to work with, and I will take a look at your articles and tell you if I can use it for one of the magazines or not. So don't, don't be shy about approaching me. If you want to submit an article, you can find me on Facebook through Facebook Messenger, and we'll start the process there, and then we will, see where it goes from there.
wonderful. And as far as your books go, best place to purchase those, Amazon?
Amazon, I do carry them in person when I am at Paracons, but you can definitely order the Lake Monster and Odd Creatures book, and I will be relaunching under my own publishing company the Mothman book under a new title and image, cover image, in the next following weeks, probably by mid-January. The current publisher is AWOL and has not returned any contact attempts, so I will be taking the book back over and republishing it myself.
Nice.
So it
Nice.
will have a new title and a new cover art, and I will put up the linkage just to that new release of the book.
Wonderful. Well, I know, like I said, we've got the links and such there in the show notes. It's got your websites to
Awesome.
where you can get your books. Also, your website that talks about you. I know I listened to some of your podcasts and some of your lecture series. If folks want to reach out to you to lecture or to speak, you do that as well, correct?
Yes, I am always looking for more opportunities to talk. So I am available to do podcast interviews, to do public speaking engagements, whether it's for a museum or a library. I am also, I do presentations at Paracons and CryptidCons. So if you have any of those and you would like me to come talk at your events, I think I'm currently up to 15 different presentations that I offer, ranging from
Wow.
the paranormal to cryptozoology. I have a presentation that will work for you. Trust me, or I can make one to work for your event. And feel free to contact me. My email address is Shetan Noir at yahoo.com. And if you just put in the subject line, either podcast interview or library presentation or presenter or speaker for event, then that's the best way to reach me for those.
Okay. And I've put your email address there that
Sure.
that you had mentioned, and also I'm just going to pull up right quick your other page since I didn't get it pulled up. Let's see. This it looks like this has some of your list of lectures that
Yes.
you do.
Yep.
And just absolutely fascinating stuff. And guys, if you are interested in having Shetan present or on your podcast, she is extremely nice and extremely gracious to take the time to come on and share her time, because as you can see, she is extremely busy with everything that she's got going on. So definitely check out her website here. Like I said, I've got the links in the show notes, but I'm actually going to go ahead and paste those on here. And let's see, pull that up. So folks can also go back and listen to your podcast and some of your lectures that you've recorded, correct?
Yes. So if you go on YouTube and just type in Shetan Noir, that will bring up all of my previous library presentations that I've done. Because back when we had to all stay at home and everything was through Zoom, libraries were like, "Can we record this?" Sure, you can record that. But I used to have my own podcast series. Don't have time for that anymore because I do much more with the magazines. But yeah, I usually range between 1 to 5 podcast interviews a week. Was like, this is my last full week of podcasts, and then like the holiday season, because I know I'll be running my mom and everyone everywhere to do Christmas shopping and stuff like that. So it'll pick back up in January, but I'm always on podcasts. So go to YouTube, type me in, and listen to some of the other interviews that I've done with different podcasts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Y'all definitely go check that out. And I'm just checking here to make sure there's no other questions. And like I said, we're definitely going to have you come back on and talk about some of these more specific topics.
Sure, I would love to.
Yeah, I just think that would be absolutely wonderful. Greg asked, he says, has Shetan done any research on the state of Washington and Lake of the Woods, Ontario?
No, I haven't, but that's only because I haven't been to those locations yet. So give me time. I will get there, and I will do some investigating.
Nice. And Brandon also says, where can I find a map of ley lines?
So I would just go on Google and type in ley lines, whatever area you're looking to get that information on. Just go on Google and type in ley lines. It is spelled differently than Lay.
It's like Lei, L. Isn't it like Leigh or something like that?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, because I think actually, hold a second. I've got.
Sure.
I've got a book actually that I was just that a friend had passed on that actually talks about ley lines, and it's the pyramid energy.
Okay,
And the
awesome.
philosophy of God, science of man. which really goes into depth on it's LEY lines,
Okay.
and talking about like the purpose of ley lines and ancient megalithic PowerPoints and that
Yep.
sort of thing. It's kind of a tough read, but very interesting. I mean, I've really enjoyed it, and kind of gives some ideas as far as like mapping ley lines and stuff,
Right.
using dowsing rods and using different tools to actually map those ley lines. So,
Yeah, definitely check out. I know that there's other books that are written about ley lines out there. So if it's and I did actually do. So if you go on YouTube and you look for my podcast, Into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal Podcast, I did do an interview with a gentleman on ley lines. Oh, probably I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. So if you look back through, I think I do have it in the information on the
yeah.
episode that it is about ley lines. So that will give you like a mini tiny little itty bitty crash course on ley lines. And by all means, see what other books are available on ley lines. And I wouldn't call myself an expert on them. I just know enough to know enough on ley lines.
Yeah. And for me, it's always been something that's a little bit difficult to explain. But
Right.
I love how you said that, where it's, the energy lines. I mean,
Yes.
that's just a perfect explanation of it. So, we're coming up here at 10:30, so we're going to wrap things up here in just a few minutes. But if you want to tell folks the best way to reach out to you, any events that you've got coming up, as well as any books or anything, go ahead and plug away.
Sure. So you can always find new information on what I am publishing on my Facebook page. Right now, the thing to keep a watch for is my little boy Connor. He's a dog. I don't have children, but Connor is doing a video series where he is doing online sales and singing little songs, and he's doing them supposedly without my knowledge. So he calls himself the puppy CEO of Squatch GQ. And so he's been running his specials. So if you get a chance to watch one of those, like it, share it. Also, if you are a fan of the publications, feel free. The best thing, if you have already bought the magazines or the books, the best way to promote an author is to share the links to their works, their magazines, their books, their writings, any sales that they're having. All it takes is a click to share it on your page. And I'm very generous with people who do share links to my Amazon my publications on Amazon, or the pages for the publications themselves. You might just find, if I can track you, if I see that you've shared like one of my publication links, or you've bought a magazine and taken a picture with it, you might just get a gift in an email from me. So, tis the season for sharing. So do your sharing, and
That's right.
you never know, I might send something. And eventually I have to get down there to your jail and do a travel article on your jail for the magazines.
Yes, I know we talked about that, and we are absolutely looking forward to you coming down, and I can't wait to see how you your experiences and stuff that you have there, and actually being able to talk to you in person.
That would be fantastic. I look forward to that. Hopefully in the spring, when the weather is better.
Yeah. I know that area you're from, it gets a little bit rough early on in the year.
It hasn't been bad yet, but we're supposed to get snow coming in tomorrow through tomorrow night. So that might make it a little bit yucky out. But so far, we haven't had too much snow on the ground.
Well, hopefully that trend will continue, unless you like snow.
No, I didn't.
Well, I know that late spring is definitely a good time to get down here to East Tennessee. So just keep us posted. And like I said,
will.
I'll be reaching out to you because I would love to have you come back and talk more
Oh, I would
about.
love to be back on your show anytime you want me on. Just let me know, and I will set up a date with you, and we will go from there.
Nice, nice. So folks, definitely go check out Shetan's pages, check out her magazines, and like she said, sharing is something that is extremely important to authors, writers, content creators. It really does mean a lot. So go check her stuff out, and like she said, you never know what might happen. You might get rewarded for that share. So
I am very generous with it.
there you go. There you go. So definitely check her out. And then check us out next week. Next week, we have Miss Genevieve Andrews. She's going to be on, or excuse me, Genevieve Kelly. We're very excited that she's going to be on here. She's going to be talking about her ghost walks and talking about her podcast. She is extremely interesting, and you're definitely going to want to tune in for that show. And then on the Thursday after that, we've got Esmeralda James that's going to be coming in. So got a full lineup. Very excited about it. Again, some different events that we've got coming up here with Ghost Biker Explorations. Check out the St. Albans EnigmaCons that takes place April 22nd and 23rd. Tickets for that goes very, very fast. And then also the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. We've got that information up on the page. All of that should be up on the website pretty soon. Different events at the historic Scott County Jail. Got the 2023 investigation calendar open. Get those dates in before they sell out, because we've been booking those like crazy the last little bit. So definitely a lot to check out over the next little bit. And also Ghost Biker merchandise. Great time to get that here with the holidays. We just had last week, we just took a actually it was last week, last Friday, just took a big order to the post office where folks have been trying to get those in before the holidays, so we still have a little bit of time left for that. So got to do a little shameless plug there. It's on the website under ghostbikerexplorations.com. Go under the shop tab and you can see all the cool merchandise and stuff that we've got there. So again, thank you everyone in the chat room. Really appreciate your questions, your comments, and reach out to Shetan if you write and if you've had an experience. Reach out to her. She might put one of your articles in her magazine. You never know.
Feel free to contact me, everyone.
All right. Well, thank you again, Shetan, and I hope that everyone has a great night and a great week.